Hachi? Oh, you won't think you're still waiting.
Hello buddies, welcome back to XRecaps, with me, Mia, still in the house. In this episode, I'll bring a plot from a film called Hachi, A Dog's Tale, 2019. Be aware of spoiler. Be careful and watch out. Without wasting time, let's get straight into the storyline of the Hachi, A Dog's Tale movie. Take a nice seat, use your AirPods, bring your snacks, and enjoy the show. Hachi, A Dog's Tale is a drama film whose story is adapted from a true story from Japan. About an Akita dog named Hachi. This is a story about loyalty. Not human loyalty, but the loyalty of a dog to his master, which exceeds dog loyalty in general. The story begins with the story of a puppy who was about to be sent from a temple in Japan to America. But when this dog arrived at the airport, its destination address was accidentally torn off. The courier, who did not realize this, immediately took the puppy to his office. Unfortunately, when it arrived at the station area, this puppy fell. The puppy was confused, and after walking aimlessly for a while, the puppy was finally found by a man named Parker. Then Parker tries to leave the puppy with the station master named Carl. But Carl refused because he didn't want to add to the trouble by accepting the puppy. Even Carl said he would send the puppy to a dog shelter. Parker, who heard this, felt sorry. Parker had no other choice but to take it home. He hopes the original owner will look for it later. When he got home, he found out that his wife, Kate, didn't like pets. Parker plans to hide the puppy in his office at home. After that, he rushed to see his wife. While the two of them were making out, Kate suddenly heard a strange sound downstairs. It turned out to be the voice of a curious little puppy that was looking for Parker. Finally, the puppy entered Parker's room and licked his wife's paw. Of course, Kate was shocked and angry. Parker finally told the truth and explained that he had accidentally found this puppy and couldn't bear to leave it alone. After his wife calmed down a bit, Parker finally moved the puppy to the warehouse. The next day, Parker introduced the puppy to his daughter, Andy. Unlike Kate, who doesn't like animals, Andy actually seems to love the puppy. She even picked the puppy up and advised Parker to pet it. But still, Kate disagreed and suggested distributing leaflets immediately to find the original owner. One day, when Parker was leaving for work, he took the puppy to an animal shelter. But the officer refused and said that the place was too full. Hearing this, Parker went and met his friend, who was the owner of a bookstore. At first, she intended and wanted to take care of the puppy. But the puppy actually got into a fight with her cat. Then Parker went to the station to go to work and asked Carl about the puppy's owner. But Carl said that no one asked or looked for the puppy. In the end, Parker decided to take the puppy to work. When Parker arrived at work, while Parker was teaching, this puppy was acting up on stage instead. Its innocent and adorable behavior made Parker's students become unfocused. After finishing teaching, Parker immediately met his best friend, named Ken. He asked his friend, who is Japanese. Parker finally found out that this dog came from Japan. It is a very rare breed of dog. Ken also read the Japanese letters on the dog's collar. Hachi, which means the number 8, in other words, is a fortune. When they got home, Kate and Parker were discussing wanting to take care of Hachi.
I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yes.
Suddenly, Hachi, who is still innocent, accidentally acts and spoils Kate's work. This made Kate even angrier. Because of that, Parker rushed to bring Hachi to the warehouse. After some time, suddenly a storm came. Hachi could only settle into Parker's house through the cracks in the walls of the warehouse. Maybe Hachi was hoping to get into the house and apologize to Kate. After finishing arguing with Kate, then Parker, who knew the situation was a storm, immediately went out and brought Hachi into the house. The two of them seemed to be getting closer, especially when Parker is looking for information about the Akita dog breed on the internet. Parker became increasingly aware that this dog breed is the most devoted to its master. After that, they watched TV together in Parker's office. Kate realized that Parker was not in bed yet, so Kate finally tried to find Parker, who turned out to have fallen asleep with Hachi in his office. Unexpectedly, Kate's heart turned out to be a little open after seeing her husband's closeness to Hachi. The next day, Parker tries to get Hachi to play ball throwing. But Hachi, who is still innocent, doesn't understand what Parker wants. Therefore, Parker tries to give an example to Hachi. He crawled to pick up the ball and gave it to Hachi, in hopes that Hachi will understand. On the other hand, Kate and Andy, who were in the kitchen, were also watching Parker and Hachi, who were getting closer. Moments later, the phone rang and Kate picked it up. It turns out that there are people who want to take care of Hachi. At first, Kate agreed to hand over Hachi. But after Kate looked back at Andy and Parker, who looked happy while playing with Hachi, Kate finally gave up her intention to give Hachi to someone else. Time passes quickly. Now Hachi is growing up and getting closer to Parker. Even so, his behavior was still that of a spoiled puppy. One day, Parker told Hachi to stay home while he went to work. Hachi was even more desperate to dig the ground to follow Parker to the station. Before leaving for work, Parker had the habit of buying coffee from a merchant named Jazz. After buying coffee, Parker set off and boarded the train. But Parker was surprised to see Hachi there. Finally, Parker returned and told Hachi to return home. At first, Hachi listened to Parker's words and walked back home. After a while, as Parker walked towards the train, Hachi suddenly reappeared, following him. This makes Parker both overwhelmed and happy because Hachi really doesn't want to let go of him. He finally came home. He didn't go to work and went home with Hachi. When he got home, Kate came and accompanied Hachi. Meanwhile, Parker went back to the station. In the afternoon, Hachi goes to the train station to pick up Parker. Because the time is not yet 5 p.m., which is usually when Parker comes home from work. Finally, Hachi was waiting right in front of the exit. Luckily, not long after that, Parker came and Hachi ran towards him. Parker always tells Ken about the various events he experienced with Hachi, including Hachi, who doesn't like to play throw balls. It turns out that this Akita dog doesn't like to play ball like an ordinary dog. This Akita is more likely to be a dog that is always loyal to its owner. Parker also realized that Hachi always seemed unable to stay away from him. One morning, when Parker was about to leave for work, Hachi suddenly showed a pitiful face, indicating that Hachi wanted to go with Parker. Parker, who couldn't bear it, finally allowed Hachi to take him to the station. In the afternoon, at 5 o'clock, Hachi was on standby, sitting right in front of the station exit, waiting for Parker to come. Since then, Hachi has always accompanied Parker to work. And in the afternoon, he is always waiting for Parker in front of the station till Parker comes. Even winter didn't stop Hachi from always dropping off and waiting for Parker. The loyalty that Hachi shows to Parker attracts the attention of Parker's close friends, making them touched. The closeness of Hachi is also seen when Parker's daughter gets married. At the wedding, Hachi took a photo with the Parker family. One day, Peter found something strange. Because it's unusual for Hachi to not come to pick up Parker when he comes home from work, this makes Parker worried. Parker tries to find Hachi by visiting his wife's workplace. Parker asked if Kate saw Hachi. However, Kate replied that she had not seen Hachi for a whole day. Finally, Parker decided to go home. Parker was surprised when he found a panicked Hachi in the warehouse. It turned out that the reason Hachi was not seen all day was because Hachi was trapped in the warehouse. There is a skunk that can emit a foul smell that has covered the path of Hachi. The beast scared Hachi, and so did Parker. Parker tried to get the skunk out of the barn door by closing it with a box. Swiftly, Hachi immediately jumped out. Unfortunately, Parker has been peed on by the skunk. The next day, Andy went to his parents' house to share the good news. When he found out that his daughter was pregnant, Parker was so excited. Even Parker left Hachi alone, and Parker started talking to his daughter. This turns out to make Hachi jealous. Plus, at nightfall, Hachi hears the sound of a dog from inside Parker's house, which makes Hachi even more convinced that Parker has a new pet and intends to leave Hachi. Yet it was Parker's voice joking with his wife, imitating the sound of a dog. The next day, Hachi sulks and he doesn't want to take Parker to work. Hachi probably thought that Parker would understand if he was being sulky over what happened yesterday. But Parker doesn't really care about Hachi and instead goes straight to work. But an unexpected situation happened. When Parker arrived at the station, Hachi caught up with him with the ball in his mouth. We know that this Akita dog does not like to play ball. The reason is Hachi doesn't want to lose Parker's affection. Hachi was willing to do things he really didn't like. Unusually, Hachi was barking as Parker left for work. It seems that Hachi forbids Parker to go and invites him to play. But Parker still has to go to work and Hachi has to feel lonely again like the previous days. On campus, Parker began to catch up to his students as usual. But when he reached the end of the lesson, his body became weak and Parker died at that time of a heart attack. While, on the other hand, Hachi is still faithfully waiting for Parker's arrival. But unfortunately, today Hachi did not see Parker out of the station door. Hachi was starting to feel anxious, but he remained patiently waiting for Parker's arrival. It was 10 p.m. when Andy's husband suddenly came to pick up Hachi. Hachi heard the cries of Kate and Andy from between the walls of the warehouse. But of course, Hachi didn't understand what they were actually crying about. The next day, Andy came over to Hachi. Andy's face had tears in her eyes, and she tried to tell Hachi that Parker would never be able to see Hachi again. Frankly, Hachi did not understand what Andy meant. After that, Andy left Hachi because Andy and her family are going to Parker's funeral. Like the previous days, Hachi was never late to wait for Parker's arrival in front of the station. Currently, Hachi still believes that Parker will come home and hug Hachi. Carl, who saw Hachi still waiting for Parker, was rushing over to Hachi. He said to Hachi that he didn't have to wait for Parker because he couldn't come back. Even so, Hachi persisted in waiting for Parker to return home. The next day, Kate was seen in the house. She was reminiscing about Parker. It turns out that she will move to a new house while Hachi will be brought by Andy to live and be cared for at her house. Hachi looks gloomy. The sad atmosphere is increasingly felt when the rain falls, which covers the conditions at that time. At home in his new place, Hachi looks less excited and keeps thinking about Parker. The climax was when Michael accidentally opened the door. Hachi suddenly ran out of the house. In the end, Hachi managed to return to his old house. However, Hachi couldn't find Parker or Kate. Hachi instead and met another person who had just bought the house. Because it feels foreign. Finally, Hachi ran and went to the station where he sat waiting for Parker at his usual place. Hachi also meets old friends there, and one of them gave Hachi food. Not long after that, Andy and Michael came to pick up Hachi to take him home. Since then, people have started to realize that Hachi has run away from home. Day after day, Hachi went through with a deeper sense of longing. Hachi always remembers Parker, especially when he hears the train whistle. Even though Andy wants to take care of Hachi, she knows that Hachi doesn't want to live with her family. Until one day, with a heavy heart, Andy let go of her father's dog. Before Hachi left, he turned to Andy. On his face, maybe Hachi wanted to thank Andy for taking care of him all this time. From here begins the life of Hachi, which is full of waiting. Every day, Hachi is always faithfully waiting for Parker in front of the train station. Hachi will not leave his waiting area until the station closes. After that, Hachi went to sleep under an old train that was no longer in use. Such is the daily life of Hachi, who is full of waiting and always patiently waiting for his beloved master to come home and hug him. A year has passed, and the story of the Hachi wait has spread widely. One day, a reporter came and asked Carl about the Hachi story. Since then, the story of the Akita dog has spread widely and has received public attention, including Parker's best friend, Ken. Finally, Ken came to the station to meet Hachi, and he offers to help Jazz with money to pay for Hachi's treatment in case he gets sick or something. But Jazz refused his help. Jazz said that the people here really care about Hachi, and many of them even donate to the cost of eating Hachi. Then Ken came over to Hachi and said that he also really missed his friend, Parker. Season after another, every day, every night, every season, Hachi faithfully waited for his master to come to hug him. Hachi often meets people who are kind to him, feed him, accompany him, or even just say hello. It's been 10 years since Parker died. One day, Kate decided to pay a visit to her husband's grave. At the same time, Ken also comes to Parker's grave. And during that time, Hachi still seemed to be loyal to the station. Of course, Hachi doesn't look as fit as it used to be, because of the age factor and also the never-ending wait. When Kate was about to return home, she was surprised by Hachi, who was still sitting in front of the station door faithfully waiting for Parker to return.
You're still waiting.
Then Kate came to Hachi and hugged him and let out all her sadness. The emotional atmosphere caused the people around the station to feel pity and shed tears too. One night, Kate visits Andy's house, and Kate tells her grandson the story of how Parker and Hachi first met. On the same night, Hachi is seen waking up to see the train coming. Hachi rushed off towards the front of the station with a glimmer of hope that Parker would come and hug him back. In the cold weather conditions and with his weakened body condition, Hachi has been sitting in the same place for the past 10 years. It turns out that this is the last night for Hachi to wait for Parker. Before closing his eyes, Hachi had time to recall his fondest memories with Parker, from when he was small until he grew up.
That's why Hachi will forever be my hero.
Hachiko. He was born in Japan in 1923, and his master was Professor Isaburo Ueno, who died in 1935. Every day for 10 years, Hachi came to Shibuya Station to wait for his master to return. Currently, you can find the statue of Hachiko sitting right in front of Shibuya Station in Japan. That was all from video. Thumbs up if you like this video. Thumbs down if you don't. Do not forget to turn on your notifications to get more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you.